Hmm? Ah!
There was a rider in the night.
Daenerys Targaryen has wed some Dothraki horse lord. What of it? Shall we send her a wedding gift?
A knife, perhaps a good sharp one, and a bold man to wield it.
She's little more than a child.
Soon enough that child will spread her legs and start breeding.
Tell me we're not speaking of this.
Oh, it's unspeakable to you? What her father did to your family, that was unspeakable. What Rhaegar Targaryen did to your sister, the woman I loved. I'll kill every Targaryen I get my hands on.
You can't get your hands on this one, can you?
This Khal Drogo. It said he has 100,000 men in his horde.
Even 1,000,000 Dothraki are no threat to the realm. As long as they remain on the other side of the narrow sea. They have no ships, Robert.
There are still those in the Seven Kingdoms who call me usurper. The Targaryen boy crosses with a Dothraki horde at his back. The scum will join him.
He will not cross. And if by chance he does, we'll throw him back into the sea.
There's a war coming, Ned. I don't know when, I don't know who we'll be fighting. But it's coming.
Hey everybody, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Duncan.
And I'm Kristin.
And this is Game of Microphones, episode 44. So, as you all know now, our special guest host this week is our friend Kristin Howe. She's been frequently featured in our Podcastica feedback sections and is a consistent presence on our Facebook page as well, always posting really cool thoughts and insights, so I'm super excited to have her on the show today. I can't wait to hear her thoughts on the Kingsroad. I know it's going to be a fun one. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. It's going to be awesome.
Thanks.
How'd you like the episode?
You know what? It's so funny revisiting this episode. I realize what a great episode it is.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack in this episode, especially if you've seen it the whole way through.
Yes.
So.
Looking forward to it. Just so everybody knows, this episode will be full of spoilers all the way up to season 7, episode 7, as this is a rewatch podcast. So if you haven't seen anything past episode 2 yet, now's your chance to throw your iPod out the window. And don't listen to this.
Right in the water.
Yeah, right in the storm water.
Yeah, exactly. Throw it out Duncan's window.
Yep. All right, so let's jump right into our top 5 highlights of Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 2, The Kingsroad. What do you got? What do you got, Kristin?
What do I have? I have quite a few things.
Awesome. So
I'm going to start off with just kind of a simple one, and that's just Catelyn Stark, just as a character. I felt like this episode really shows the range of kind of the complexity that is Catelyn.
Yeah.
She's like this fierce mom. She loves her kids. She loves her family. She loves being a Stark, but she so vehemently hates Jon Snow. And it just, when she's sitting there tending to Bran and she's just looking at Jon Snow with this intense hatred while she has tears rolling down her face, and she just, it's like all she can do not to reach over the bed and strangle him to death. Like, that's kind of how I felt. And it makes you wonder, how Jon Snow was able to last all those years with that much hatred being thrown at him for so long.
I know, it really gives you an insight into his psychological issues dealing with his bastardhood and how it upsets him so much. Right.
Yeah. And his strength. I mean, you have to be pretty strong to be able to withstand that.
And what are the Tully words? They're duty, honor, family, correct? In that order?
Yes.
So it must be a huge stain on Catelyn Tully's perceived honor to have had her husband do this to her in her mind, since we know now that he has not actually cheated on her.
I know.
Yeah, so it's just really sad all around. If she knew
But
the
then you
truth, it would
think,
be fine.
yeah, right. Well, but then you think, I mean, if she had known the truth all along and she had treated him differently, that would have raised some eyebrows,
Yep,
probably.
exactly. Ned
So,
Ned was smart. He did what he had to do, at great cost.
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, that's okay. But I mean, when you go from this like broken woman who hates this guy or this kid, this child, she's watching her son in a coma. She's having to say goodbye to her husband and her daughters, and they're leaving, and she doesn't want them to go. And then, she goes full mama bear. I mean,
Full
when
mama bear.
she grabs that knife. I just, you can't help but just be like, oh my gosh, your hands are ruined. They're ruined. With the blood going down, and she's trying to save Bran, and at the
Oh
cost
God.
of her life,
And as a guitarist, for me, like watching that with the hands, it's just like horrible. I can't even. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
the adrenaline, right? I mean, it's just
It's an
unbelievable.
amazing moment.
So, and then she goes on this like crazy detective show at Winterfell, and she gets all of her little band of people together at the Godswood. And I mean, there's so much range in Catelyn Stark for this one episode. It blew me away.
Yeah, from being completely shell shocked to being completely focused and on a mission, and just hatred and love and everything, all full spectrum.
Right.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, and we also learn from Catelyn that it's been more than a month since the ending of the last episode.
Right.
So
yeah, she basically
times
hasn't
it
left Bran's side.
in over a month.
Yeah, that's dedication. But it's also it's kind of messed up too, because Rickon is out there, 6 years old, following Rob around, crying, clutching at his legs, like, "Where's my mom? Where's my dad? What's going on?" And
See, during all that time, she could have just taught him how to serpentine.
I know, right? Zig, zag, duck, roll, jump. Oh, the sadness. And it was her last chance to teach him too.
Yeah, yeah.
Mothers
left
teach your
and everything
children to serpentine young.
That would have been a good episode.
Yeah. Before I go, run back and forth.
Yeah. Take this bow.
Anything else about Catelyn?
No, I mean, the only other thing is probably just that, when you see Catelyn at this stage, there's a lot of comparisons of the Stark children to Ned over the years, and
Yes.
I don't think that there's enough due to Catelyn and what she gave Sansa. And when you see Sansa now and her focus and her dedication to her family and how she carries herself and how devoted she is to her name and to her house, a lot of that I think goes to Catelyn and what her character was, So
Great.
I thought that was worth mentioning.
Great connection. And maybe even some of Arya's ferocity to protect her family as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. All right. My number 5 is foreshadowing. Just the preponderance, is that the right word? Of just so much foreshadowing in this episode. We've got the mention of beheading by Viserys, and then immediately he changes to talking about Ned Stark, which foreshadows Ned Stark being beheaded. I think he's talking with Jorah at something that's going on. I can't remember now. Over in the Dothraki Sea. Tyrion sets up his own imprisonment in this episode by slapping Joffrey, and the Hound says, "The prince will remember that, my lord." And we know he does, because when he's dying, he points at Tyrion, and that's Tyrion's downfall. Sadly,
Yeah.
we have Cersei talking about how she lost her first boy to a fever, and Robert was crazed, and she mentioned that the boy looked just like him, which hints that Joffrey does not look like him, and kind of hints at Ned's discovery of the Joffrey's bastardhood. So I thought that was pretty cool. I never really noticed that little line before, and the significance of that. And yeah, and just to mention, to expand on that little scene a little bit, she mentioned Cersei, how she never visited the crypt, never saw him, and it obviously really affected her. But then she goes to see Catelyn, and says, I pray to the mother every day and night to bring him back to you about Bran. And we know she wants Bran dead, and I'm just thinking, wow, total sociopath.
I know she's such a bitch.
Reminds me of an ex or two of mine. You know what I mean?
We all have them.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have the scene with Jon and Jaime interacting, and Jaime intimidating Jon, which is a really, really fun scene to watch, pulling him close and showing he's stronger than him and saying, I'm glad to know we have such strong men guarding us in the north, at the wall. But this doesn't really foreshadow anything specific, but I'm predicting that it's foreshadowing some type of interaction between these two again, which will probably be important. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jaime, considering his mental state at this stage of the game, if he confesses to pushing Bran, which may play in his favor, considering Bran...
Oh, you mean later in Season 8?
Yeah. Yeah, when he finally gets back up north and teams up with Team Life.
That's going to be a really, really interesting approach.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to Jaime showing up in Winterfell for a host of reasons.
Right. Yeah. How do you think that interaction with Bran is going to go down?
Well, yeah, I am of the camp that Bran is not Bran anymore.
Right.
Really.
I agree.
I just feel like he's going to be like, yes, Jaime, you are the one that pushed me. Chaos is a ladder. Say things.
You will be important in the wars to come.
Here, have a dagger. I think you'll need it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I really think that Bran is not going to have any personal begrudging feelings towards Jaime. I think that, like you said, he's the three-eyed raven. If anything, Jaime helped create him, and I think that he'll see Jaime in the grand scheme of things and see all of his actions. And he'll know of the sacrifices he made, the sacrifice to his honor, just like Ned did. By saving King's Landing and killing the king, sacrificing his own honor to protect millions of people. What did they say? 10 million people lived in King's Landing, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it was 1 million.
1 million? That's huge.
That's a lot of people for that small of a space.
Huge. And for a time period like that, man, more people than all the North combined. So I think that Bran will recognize Jaime's honor as the viewer of the show does at this point, seeing everything in perspective, because now Bran has that gift as well, and I think it'll play out to Jaime's favor overall. But there may be some tense moments between him and Jon when Jaime does in fact confess, and if he doesn't confess when it's revealed that he pushed Bran, because Bran definitely knows at this point.
Yeah, there's yes. So you think that Bran is just going to thank him?
Maybe not necessarily thank him, but I think he'll see that, without every little piece of the puzzle, none of it would happen. So he won't necessarily hate him as much. He'll just see him as a necessary part of reality.
I just don't think that he gets mad anymore.
Oh man, that'd be crazy to see him mad. That's for sure. So then we also have the line from Jon to Arya when he says, "All the best swords have names, talking about Needle, and that kind of foreshadows Arya's conversation with the Hound, where he says, what does he say about?
Of course, you named your sword.
Lots of people name their swords. Lots of cunts. Right. Everybody is talking about naming swords with Arya.
That's true, right?
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. Kind of noticed that little that parallel there. Then we had Catelyn in her rage right after Jon comes to visit Bran. I want you to leave. He leaves, and it was brutal. Then Ned comes in, and one of the first things she says is, 17 years ago, you rode off with Robert Baratheon, and you came back a year later with another woman's son. And I'm just thinking, damn, she is not gonna let this go.
You're like, and if only you knew, bitch. If only you knew.
Yeah, if only you knew. And in his mind, he's just got to be like, But this also is foreshadowing that I think that he's not even Jon's kid. Another woman's son, an entirely different woman. Related but unrelated in terms of marital relations to Ned.
Right, exactly. Right? Totally different man too, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
So whatever.
So I thought that was cool. There's all these lines that.
Well, that's interesting that you brought up. That's interesting that you brought up foreshadowing because of Jaime and Tyrion talking. Is that in your notes?
No.
About I'm trying to find. Here we are. I'm trying to find the note. Jaime says, "Give me a good, clean death, anyways," because he doesn't want to ever be a grotesque cripple. And what is it, like 4 or 5 episodes later? He doesn't have a hand anymore, or is that next season?
Oh, dude. Good job. Great pickup there. Yeah. Couple seasons later, middle of season 3, I think, when he takes his journey with Brienne.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So there you go. He does not get his good, clean death.
And he's saying it to his, as far as Westeros is concerned, to his, grotesque crippled brother.
His grotesque brother, yeah. And sadly, he ends up a broken thing himself.
Exactly.
But that sort of puts his ego in check and makes him a better person. So it's probably better for the realm overall. Right.
Well, also, when in that Jaime and Jon conversation as well, when he goes to shake his hand, he shakes his hand with the hand that he doesn't have anymore, and they close in on that hand.
Oh, right. Yeah. Zoom right up on it.
Yeah.
And have you seen the bad lip reading of Game of Thrones?
You know what? I have, like, years ago, but I haven't seen it recently.
I'll post it, just to, because it's so funny. But if anybody out there hasn't seen it, watch bad lip reading on YouTube. Bad lip reading of Game of Thrones. It's great. Jaime walks up to Jon in that scene, and he says something. What is it? Anybody who puts a slice of pizza on bread is a pukachim. It's Aztec for lazy farmer. I looked it up on Wikipedia.
I have seen that now that you say that.
It's so classic. Oh, but when he's talking with Tyrion back at that breakfast scene, he tells Tyrion, like you said, give me a good, clean death any day. That foreshadows Bran's murder, or attempted murder later in the episode with the assassin. And when Tyrion hears about the assassin, that he puts that statement by Jaime in context and makes it seem like Jaime is potentially a suspect for sending the assassin. Because he implies that he wants to, that he would prefer if Bran died.
Right.
And same with Cersei in that scene. She also says it's not a mercy to keep him alive. So that could put put Cersei on Tyrion's radar for potential suspects. Because there is a point where he ends up deciding that he believes it's Joffrey who sent the assassin. Yeah, but he rules out Cersei and Jaime first.
I watched that scene a few different times looking at Tyrion because I've heard before that Tyrion makes note of Cersei and Jaime's reaction, and it's really, really subtle. But you see Tyrion, he's looking at both of them, and he's hey, are you guys looking at each other like that?
Because they're giving each other back and forth looks, and Cersei just does not look happy at all that when he says that Bran is probably going to live, and you can tell that Tyrion's suspicious, and he doesn't hide it either. He says at the end of the conversation, I'd be very interested to hear what he has to say when he wakes up.
Yeah, but she didn't say that until Cersei left, or he didn't say that until Cersei left.
Right, yeah, when he's having his bromance with Jaime.
Bromance. Oh my god!
I just made that up on the
spot. There's a lot of bromance with Jaime.
yeah, totally. He's the big bro. Also, speaking of Bran's death, or his attempted assassination, Robert mentions sending a knife to Dany as a gift. Actually, that's the clip that I played during the intro, is their conversation about Dany and sending a knife as a gift to kill her, and Ned is not having it, and then, Robert says, there's a war coming, Ned. I don't know who'll be fighting, I don't know when, but it's coming, like winter.
Yeah, right.
And it is the War of Winter. He doesn't even know it. So that's more foreshadowing of the Long Night and the Great War.
I wonder if that's when he hired Jorah to kill Daenerys.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely shortly after this. I think they confer further with the Small Council in episodes to come. But yeah, the word is sent at that point for sure. And by the time Robert is incapacitated, Ned he speaks to Varys and it's too late to intervene. The birds have already flown, he says. Right. So yeah, there's Robert mentioning a knife, sending it to Dany, who's a child, also foreshadows the knife being sent towards Bran later in the episode. And he mentions that, if Viserys rides, crosses the Narrow Sea with the Dothraki army, and Ned said it'll never happen, and that foreshadows Dany riding across with her Dothraki army.
Oh, yeah. One of the best moments of the whole series.
Yeah, so epic in so many ways. And then Dany's talking with her handmaidens, the new Khaleesi with her little crew of cool ladies, and they're talking about the dragon eggs, and
it
is known, yeah, the Lysini Pleasure House girl, Jiqui or someone, I can't remember her name.
I think that is.
She mentions that a trader told her that dragons hatched from the moon. There used to be 2 moons in the sky, and one grew too close to the sun, cracked from the heat, hatching dragons. Which is a pretty cool concept, but it also foreshadows the hatching of Dany's eggs as they are put in the fire of Drogo's pyre.
Yes, absolutely.
At the end of the season, which is cool foreshadowing as well. And I'm sure there's a ton of stuff more, but we don't have to cover everything. Podcast will last forever. So that'll cover my foreshadowing for now. What's your number 4, Kristin?
Well, actually, it's really funny because my number 4 was actually red flags and bad omens.
Oh, great.
So it kind of goes with yours, so I won't spend too much time on it just because we've spent the last several minutes on foreshadowing, which kind of goes into that. But one of them was, obviously Catelyn finding the long hair in the tower, someone trying to murder Bran after everybody leaves, as one of those red flags, right? She goes up to the tower and she finds the long hair. Well, there's literally one person that has one long blonde hair, right? I don't think that is a mystery, really. It's just, what is Catelyn going to do with that, right?
Yeah, and what does it mean? Like, what context is that hair in? She doesn't have the context, so she finds the hair and she's like, what happened here? Like, something happened, but I don't know what.
Exactly. And kind of her decision,
something.
Right. And her decisions that she made after visiting that tower kind of, affect the rest of the story.
Absolutely.
If she would have just stayed in Winterfell, who knows what would have happened, right? I mean,
Tyrion never would have been captured. Ned would not have been, necessarily informed to the same way that he was about the assassination attempt and the Lannister connection. Yeah. Jeez.
It just, it would be a completely different story, and maybe it wouldn't, it would definitely not be a good story. It would be boring.
Yeah.
But
more boring, at least.
One of the biggest red flags, what made me even think of red flags, was just everything that happened on the Kingsroad. Everything. I mean, they're not even to King's Landing yet, and a direwolf is dead. Another one is missing. Cersei and Joffrey are showing their true identities. Robert doesn't want to confront any of it. Joffrey, before they even leave, is proving to be a total dick, and arguably one of the best GIFs ever in the history of Game of Thrones, with Tyrion slapping Joffrey just over and over and over again. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world to go back and watch. But, with the running down of the butcher's boy, so Joffrey, he shows what a complete dick he is and what a problem he's going to be by the way he, treats Tyrion in the little dog pen, running down the butcher's boy, or having the Hound run down the butcher's boy, begging Arya not to hurt him, slicing Micah's face for fun, lying to Cersei and then Robert about being beaten with clubs, smiling at the fate of Sansa's direwolf, and everybody's just
disgusting.
And that's just one episode, right? They're not even to King's Landing yet, and he's just proving that maybe we shouldn't be putting all of our eggs in the Baratheon basket here.
Jesus. The ending of this episode is arguably the hardest episode for me to watch. The hardest moment for me to watch of this entire series.
Absolutely.
With Lady.
Absolutely. 100%. It's up there with the burning of Shireen for me.
Yeah, it's even worse for me, I think. Like, I don't know. That was pretty bad, too, obviously.
They're both innocents, right? Two innocent deaths. Yeah,
I guess I had I had been expecting the burning of Shireen for so long beforehand that I already had my armor built up for that. Whereas for this, the first time watching it, I had no idea that it was going to happen. Where it's only episode 2 of the show.
You hadn't read the books
yet? The cruelty of the depths. I had not. Yeah, I read them. I read them after season 4 aired. I started watching the show during season 4 and caught up at season 8 to watch, or episode 8 to watch that live, The Mountain and the Viper. So that was my first live Game of Thrones experience.
Oh,
which
you know what? I remember
amazing.
You saying that last week. So you watched the Red Wedding without knowing what the Red Wedding was.
Yeah, totally. I managed to stay spoiler free. I had heard the Red Wedding mentioned just by name, but I didn't know what happened. So yeah, that was a surprise too. It was awesome.
Bit, yeah.
Yeah, going into this, having no idea of the depths of the cruelty of this show, aside from seeing Bran pushed from a window at the previous episode, I was like, man, every episode ends with something horrible on this show. This is amazing.
This is amazing. I have to watch the next one immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And I did.
Yeah, perfect.
So yeah. Totally brutal.
And then another bad omen, I think, for Jon is on the way up to the wall, he sees that there's rapists coming with him. And so kind of the glass is shattering around what he perceives the men of the Night's Watch to be. Almost like he didn't know, these are all criminals and thieves and rapists. And, these
it's his first dose of reality about the situation, kind of.
Yeah, and he's still such a kid, and he's so immature in comparison to the Jon Snow that we know now, right? He's just a totally different character, and it's interesting to see how he deals with new information and how he takes in disappointment. I mean, this is one of his first disappointments away from his dad, right? I mean, he's no longer under the protection of Winterfell and the Stark name, and almost immediately he's getting handed a short deck.
Right. And while we're talking about Jon, his character shines through from the start of the series, and he visits Bran, and he sincerely is, mourning over Bran, and while he's sleeping, invites him up to the wall when he wakes up and says they'll, walk the top of the wall together and do all this stuff. And he tries to minimize drama by lying to Robb and telling him that Catelyn was, quote, very kind to him, even though she was a horrible wretch.
She was kind in that she let me live.
Yeah, she didn't rip his throat out with her teeth, like Summer did to the assassin.
It was awesome.
So awesome. And then, he really cares. Like, he's, Ned tells him there's great honor in serving with the Night's Watch, and when he's talking with Tyrion in the scene we're discussing now, and Tyrion's kind of showing him oh, look, rapers and thieves, you have new brothers. The great thing about the Night's Watch, you discard your old family and get a whole new one. And Jon looks over at his uncle Benjen at that moment and turns to Tyrion and says, the Night's Watch protects the realm from, and Tyrion cuts him off from grumpkins and snarks. So you can tell that, Jon's heart is in the right place. He cares about protecting the realm. He thought it would be an adventure and honor to serve in the Night's Watch. He's a very honorable person. And though his naivete may disappear or shrink to some degree, his honor lives on.
I think he's probably the most honorable of all the Starks, I would say.
More so than Ned?
Yes. Because I don't think honor is going to necessarily get Jon killed. I think that he takes his honor and he steels himself, and I think he's prepared for whatever may come at this point.
Ha ha! You spoke too soon, Kristin. It already did get him killed.
Ah, ha ha! But did it? It did not, sir.
Well, it did, but he came back.
Hey, he got a second chances. Okay, this is America.
Yeah, yeah. That's so awesome. He got lucky having a red witch nearby.
You're just waiting for me to fall into that, weren't you? You're just like, say it, Kristin, say it.
Well, I wasn't waiting for it, but when he said it, I realized it for sure. That's great.
But the last kind of bad omen or red flag I thought was with Viserys and Jorah. That conversation that they had about kind of why Jorah was in trouble, why he came to Essos, why is he with the Targaryens, and it was about the fact that Jorah was selling to slavers, poachers, off of his land, and Ned, instead of executing him, exiled him, or he ran off, or I still didn't get a clear story on what happened there.
Ned was trying to catch him to kill him, but Jorah basically escaped and went into exile on his own will.
So Viserys is like, well, under my reign, you won't be in trouble for such nonsense, right? Like selling to slaves, because he literally just sold off his sister to the Dothraki. Yeah.
Oh, what a dick.
He just has no problem with it. And he's like, I'm here to get my crown. Dude, you're about to get the best crown that you have ever deserved in your entire life.
Oh, yeah. He's going to get the crown he deserves. Absolutely.
When he hits the floor, it was satisfying.
Oh, man. Yeah, I want to high five the Foley artists that created that sound, because they nailed it.
I almost want, like, if I ever meet Jason Momoa, I want to high five him just for the fact that his character killed Viserys.
Yeah.
Like, you killed Viserys. High five, bro. Yeah.
I've met Jason Momoa, and now I'm regretting not doing that.
You've met Jason Momoa?
Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh.
I worked with him at a convention briefly.
Oh, that's great.
I saw him getting a massage in the hospitality room, and he was scary even while he was relaxed. And I'm 6'1". I'm like not a small guy by any sense, but he makes me look tiny and makes me feel tiny.
There's a picture of him somewhere. I'll try and find it and send it to you, but it's him walking down a street with two bodyguards that look like his little Lego toys.
That's great. Yeah, the bodyguards. Yeah, he's their bodyguard.
Exactly.
I'll post a picture on the group of me with Jason Momoa, so you guys can see how much bigger than me he is.
I can't wait.
It's pretty crazy.
So, anyways, that whole conversation with Viserys and Jorah, and Jorah, it looks like he's starting to realize, I think I may have backed the wrong horse, and he kind of starts moving towards Daenerys a little bit more, right?
Absolutely.
Separates himself from the crazy.
Absolutely. He realizes that what he did was wrong. He's not proud of what he did. It's clear in the books when he describes, that whole situation. At least, it's more, more articulated. He was put in a difficult position trying to make his ex-wife happy, and it required too much money that he didn't have. Being, Bear Island, the House Mormont is not necessarily a wealthy house on their sparse northern island, so he had to do things to make money to satisfy his elegant southern wife that he was not happy with, and he's paying the price for it.
Yeah. That's all right. Yep. Lyanna's got it. Lyanna Mormont's got it.
Yeah. Love Lady Lyanna. Triple L. Little Lady Lyanna.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, she's the best. What else you got?
That's it. We've basically talked about foreshadowing and bad omens for a while, so I think that we've got it.
All right, and yeah, that's awesome. There's so much of that in this episode. It's just chock full of that good stuff. Awesome. That now in context is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my number 4 is the moment between Ned and Jon.
Yay!
Their last moment together, which is just sad in so many ways. Jon. It's sad that he doesn't have time to tell Jon about his mother at that moment. So Jon is riding off not knowing about his mother and being turned down when he asks about his mother, which is sad in itself. It's sad knowing that Jon will not know. He'll never see his quote, father again to tell him. So in knowledge of that, it's really sad. It's just sad to see, them parting for the last time. It's sad to see Ned make a promise he can't keep with his honor. There's so many sad things about this, but it's just a great moment as well. They're watching Benjen ride off with the men taking the slavers or the rapists and the thieves heading north, and Ned tells Jon, even though he knows the truth of the situation, that there's great honor being in the Night's Watch. Starks have served on the wall for thousands of years, and it's true. And Benjen is, the latest example of that, following in the Stark tradition. That there's often a Stark on the wall, which is really it's interesting and shows you the character of the Stark family. That even though it's been thousands of years since the Night's Watch, or since the Long Night, and the end of the dawn came, and and the last hero and Azor Ahai and all these guys, or all this one guy with all these different names, had saved the day and built the wall and created this safe environment, that even now they're following through with their commitment to guarding the realms of men and keeping their family involved with the tradition of the Night's Watch, which is, it's pretty hardcore. I mean,
absolutely.
It's a lot of sacrifice for a minimal perceived threat at this point in time, and it highlights the level of honor and commitment of the Stark family. So it's pretty impressive, and it means a lot to me. It's significant. So Ned goes on to say, "You might not have my name, but you have my blood." And
you had to say it in the Stark accent too, right?
I had to. I can't resist often. And that was interesting to me. Now that we know that he definitely does not have Jon or Ned's name, he has the Targaryen name. So that stuck out to me. But he does, in fact, have Ned's at least bloodline, not necessarily his specific blood, but his sister's blood.
Ned Stark's blood runs through his veins.
Yeah, and so we don't really know until this point what Ned's thought or what Jon's thoughts are about his mother, if he ever thinks about her, if it's something that's on his mind. But he blurts out at this point, is my mother alive? Does she know about me, where I am, where I'm going? After a pause, does she care?
You have no idea how much your mom cared about you, dude.
Yeah,
none.
Yeah, and the level of sacrifice that everybody has made just to protect you and to keep you safe.
Keep you alive.
The amount of caring to keep you alive. The amount of caring is through the roof.
Yeah.
So Ned promises that the next time we see each other, we'll talk about your mother.
So I have an interesting thought on that.
Good, I do too.
Oh, good. I wonder. Okay, so it's your point.
No, you first.
Okay. So I wonder if Jon's going to find out about his parentage in the crypt in front of Ned's statue.
Oh man.
Seeing as that might be the next time he sees his father, just to kind of put it on full circle.
That would be. Wow, if they think of that and do that, that needs to be done. That's how it needs to happen.
If it happens, you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Wow. And especially considering Bran sees all, Bran will have seen, hopefully, Jon's last interaction with Ned. That, the next time we see each other,
I'll
tell you. So he could see that and bring him down to the crypt to put it in that context.
Oh my gosh. I want to see it now. I want to see it right now.
Yeah, as a wave of emotion hits me with that prospect. Good job.
Thank you.
Amazing.
What's your thought?
My thought was that Ned may specifically have been waiting to tell Jon who his mother was until he takes the black. Because when you take the black, you're forgiven of all past crimes. You can't be persecuted for anything you've done or are. Kings have taken the black. The 7 kings of the kingdoms, when Aegon, at least any that lived, when Aegon took command of the 7 kingdoms, those those kings who bent their knees took the black. So Ned's final way of ensuring Jon's protection from Robert may be to have him take the black, to have him be forgiven for his crime of being a Targaryen under a Baratheon reign. It would officially put him out of the reach of Robert Baratheon, so Baratheon would not be able to kill him. So Ned may have I just realized this right now. Ned may have not discouraged Jon from taking the black because it would put him out of the reach of the king's justice. And given, what Robert says this week, oof. I'll kill any Baratheon I see, any Baratheon I get my hands on, as you guys heard in the intro audio clip. You can't get your hands on Daenerys, Ned says, and with Jon taking the black, you can't get your hands on him either, boy.
Does he know that the Maester of the Night's Watch is a Targaryen? Does anybody?
I don't. It was so long ago when when Aemon took the black, and when you take the black, you actually when you become a Maester, you forfeit your family name. So Maesters just have one name, Maester Luwin,
right,
which would have been his first name. Maester Aemon, which is his first name. Any Maester, just their first name. They forsake their family names. So even when Aemon arrived at the Wall, he was no longer a Targaryen at that point. So even it's questionable, if people at the Wall at that time knew if he was a Targaryen. It's been lost over the past 95 years, probably, since he's been at the Wall, or less in show context. Sorry, maybe 70, 60 years since Aemon arrived at the Wall. I guarantee that Robert Baratheon has no idea that there's a living Targaryen who is serving at the Wall. He probably has no clue.
Well, there's two. There was two.
yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. No. Hey, you got me earlier, so.
yeah. Thanks, Kristin.
That was payback.
Yeah, good call. So he probably has no idea. So yeah, this is a very interesting moment in a lot of ways. Now, seeing it in context, Ned is sending him off because if he told him about his mother now and about who he really is,
he just wasn't ready for that, though.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think at this point, he just wanted Jon to finish taking the black and just have it done with to get him out of Robert's reach. Significant moment in a lot of ways, and a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of sadness, a really powerful, amazing moment. That's my number 4. What about you?
That's such a good one. That is such a good one. Well, so my number 3 kind of goes into what you were saying, just in the fact that it was just all about saying goodbye and leaving Winterfell. I mean, this is where the story officially splits off, right? There's not going to be a Stark reunion until season 6 with Sansa and Jon.
Wow, think about that. This is the last time that all these Starks see each other.
And what's interesting is that everybody that Jon says goodbye to in this episode, he has yet to see again. Because he did not say goodbye to Sansa in this episode. That we saw, at least, right. Yeah. So it's interesting to me that, everybody, goodbye Stark, goodbye Snow, goodbye to you, Stark, or something.
Right. And he's the only person that we really follow around to see him saying goodbye to all these people.
Right.
Interestingly. So that shows you right off the bat that these showrunners are viewing him as the main character.
He is a focal point. Absolutely.
Yeah, more so even than Ned, who we don't see say goodbye to anybody, really.
Yeah, except Catelyn, but that was just mainly a marriage fight,
Yeah.
It's what happens before long separations. Lots of fighting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's to me, it was interesting, Jon and Arya saying goodbye to each other. That seemed really poignant. The presentation of Needle and just seeing how close they were. I mean, it seems that he really only had a real relationship with Arya. I mean, he had a brotherly relationship with Robb, I think, to a certain extent, but it looks to me that Theon and Robb were actually closer than maybe Jon and Robb.
Interesting. I got the impression that Jon and Robb were really close, but I think they had the underlying tension, at least from Jon's side, that he couldn't be a Stark, and so he sort of held Robb in some degree of not contempt, but he held it against him to some extent, sadly. And there's more clues to that in the books. If you guys are interested, I encourage you to read them.
Which is interesting that maybe Theon and Jon weren't closer. Or maybe they were, I'm not sure, right? I mean, they were both, one was a prisoner and one was a bastard. You would assume that maybe they would have had some sort of a relationship, but you don't see any of that.
As two sort of black sheep.
Right. I mean, because their reunion, when Theon comes up shore to Dragonstone after he jumped in the water.
Yeah, they don't seem that like they were close.
Felicia.
Yeah. The only reason I'm not killing you.
I think that was one of my favorite reunions last season was that face off, because I didn't know what Jon was going to do.
I loved all the reunions so much. Like it's hard for me to find fault with anything really on this show, except for a couple moments in season 5. Relating to the sand
Are you talking about Dorne? Sure.
Yeah.
Weird.
I think, that's the only show's real major misstep thus far, which is great. I mean, otherwise they've got a perfect marks, basically. Interestingly, now that I'm thinking of it, to mention how we didn't see Jon meet or say goodbye to Sansa, this was his opportunity, and he may have done it for all we know, but Jon and Sansa never shared a moment on screen until season 6 when they were reunited.
Right.
So that's just an interesting little tidbit.
That's very, very and it was so great because when they did do their reunion at Castle Black, it was so genuine, and I mean, I was crying, like big crocodile ugly tears going down my cheeks for two people that had never shared the screen before.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But these characters
just that connection,
so well
they have,
point, right? Like Jon's just been raised from the dead, and Sansa's been raped and married off multiple times.
Jesus. I'll probably cry when Jon and Arya meet up, because they have a real special relationship. You can tell that there's something special between those two. They have a special bond. He thought to have a sword made for her. It means he knows her, who she really is, and respects it, and and encourages her to be herself, which is something that is not necessarily common for a male to do for a female of that aptitude in the world of Westeros. We have 2 significant examples of that, maybe 3 actually, because Lyanna Stark, as we find out later, was sort of a horse riding tomboy badass. So I guess it's sort of a tradition in the Stark family to encourage strong female behavior.
Well, in the North, probably. I mean, you look at
in the North, you're right. The Mormont house in general, with warrior women, Mage Mormont and whatnot. Brienne of Tarth from the South, for another.
She awesome.
Yeah, so we have these few examples of this, and it's really good to see Jon encouraging Arya to be herself. And I encourage you guys to read the books, because you get
there's so much
insight
more
into the thoughts of these characters.
Absolutely.
And it really becomes clear how much Jon and Arya love each other. They're always thinking about each other. Arya wanting Jon to mess her hair up and call her little sister. And initially,
she cut bait, and she was going to go to King's Landing, and she heard that Jon was at Winterfell and that he had taken it back, and I mean.
And that was like an opportunity for her to have family again. Like that's who she considers her family.
Right. Do you think if she thought that just Sansa was at Winterfell and Jon was gone, do you think she would have continued on to King's Landing?
I bet she would have continued on to King's Landing, killed Cersei, and then headed back to Winterfell.
So Jon was the bait.
Jon was absolutely the trigger. She could not resist the opportunity to see Jon.
Right.
It was like the moment she heard Jon mentioned, like her
everything
Everything
changed.
she thought she lost flooded back into her mind.
Absolutely.
And changed her personality and mindset. And she needed more than anything to get back to Jon.
So cool.
Which is so cool. Yeah, and Jon often thinks of Arya. And interestingly, I think I've mentioned this before, when George R. R. Martin had conceived of the show, his initial outline for his book that he sent to his publishers had described that Jon would end up marrying Arya.
Yep.
And there's little hints throughout the first book that may have still been the plan. For instance, when Jon sees Ygritte naked, he thinks of Arya, which is
so weird.
Hilarious. Skinny little twig girl reminds him of his little sister, and yeah, little things like that, which are really funny.
You're like, stop, buddy, just stop right now.
Yeah.
All it does is it just foreshadows to the fact that he would be totally down with doing his aunt. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. That's what that foreshadows in the show.
Right.
And
not his love for his sister. No.
Yeah, and happily on the show we can look forward to a platonic reunion,
right,
with Jon
or
and
maybe
Arya,
some weird love triangle. Who knows?
Oh man, to break you guys, all of you listening, you're gonna hate me for this, so brace yourselves emotionally for the prospect of this occurring. But what happened? We know that Ned loved his sister Lyanna as well. They fought a war to get her back. And what happened when Ned, after everything that he did to get back to Lyanna, finally gets back to Lyanna? She dies in his arms. Could this foreshadow Arya dying in Jon's arms upon being reunited after some battle or some traumatic event that leads to them being brought together? Could it happen?
That breaks my heart a little.
I know. I've mentioned it before, and people are like, "Why? Why did you say that?
Why did you bum me out, man?"
And I think it's just George R. R. Martin enough to potentially happen. So
totally
brace yourselves emotionally for that eventuality. And I don't know anything about the future, so it's not technically a spoiler. But if it does happen, I'm sorry that I brought it up.
You know what? I braced myself all season for a dragon to die, and I still wasn't ready for it. So, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But just two more goodbyes was Arya and Nymeria.
Yeah. So heart-wrenching.
Which,
another really hard moment for me to watch.
Yeah. And I just wish that there was more Nymeria this past season. I hope that we see her again. I hope that wasn't just kind of like a service to the fans, like here's where Nymeria is. I hope that she comes back at some point, maybe with Ghost. I don't know. I know that
just that direwolf budget being murdered by the dragons.
Totally worth it, by the way. I mean, I love the direwolves, but all the dragon action last season was just amazing.
It's the best dragon stuff that's ever been produced on this show.
Absolutely. Just Drogon in the background right before Randall and Dickon Tarly. That name, Dickon. I can't get over it.
Dick. Yeah.
This is the Beavis and Butthead portion of your podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But just him, just sitting there, with his wings outstretched. I mean, it's majestic. It's amazing,
Oh, man. Backlit.
So good. And then Catelyn finally decides she's going to leave Winterfell.
Right.
So, everybody's leaving. They're leaving, Rickon and Robb and Bran to Winterfell, which we know Robb's going to leave. And then, Bran and Rickon are going to have their own story after that. So, I mean, this is kind of the beginning of the end for Winterfell until, Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah, and a really cool moment there with Catelyn, too. She had said, she can't leave Bran's side. She needs him. He needs her. And earlier in the episode when talking with Robb. And at this point, after snapping back into it, we get a huge character development with her in this. And she says, I've prayed to the Seven for Bran for a month. He's in their hands now. And his life is in the hands of the Seven now. And I was just like, wow, like that is intense, man.
Catelyn, I love her, and then I just want to slap her.
You and a lot of other people.
Right? I mean, everything, for every 3 good things that she does this one terrible thing or asinine thing, and she just takes like 5 steps back for a character. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, there's no shortage of Catelyn hate on the internet.
Hey,
put it that way.
I love her. I do. I really do. I love, like, every test I ever take, those stupid online tests, I always come up Catelyn Stark. So clearly, me and Lady Catelyn have got a kinship going on. But
okay, internet, send your hate mail to Kristin.
Yes, do that right now. If you need to shove it somewhere, there you go.
No, please don't, actually.
So, and then, the weird conversation between Jon and Jaime, which we've already touched on a little bit. That conversation's going to haunt me a little bit, I think, because I watched it a couple different times thinking that, there was something there, and it probably wasn't anything. After watching that scene, I thought maybe Jaime knew the truth about Jon, and he was glad that Jon was going to go take the black.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, it is entirely possible that, somehow somebody knows. Yeah, I was wondering that too. Now that you started talking about this interaction, I was like, why is he seeking out the bastard of Winterfell and having this very bizarre interaction with him where he's intimidating him? It's like he knows, like he has experience with Targaryens, and yeah, it's interesting that he would target Jon for this type of intimidation. And there's no reason for it unless he knows. Really.
Jaime's pretty smart. When he's not around Cersei, he's very observant. He's
a smart fool. Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
A smart fool. That's a good way to put it. He is a smart fool. But also, is Jaime Kingsguard at this point?
He is, yes.
Okay, so
he was Kingsguard for Aerys, Kingsguard for Robert, and was only dismissed by Joffrey or Tommen or somebody with Cersei.
Okay, because he's mocking a life sentence for the Night's Watch to Jon, but he has a life sentence himself that is not unlike a Night's Watchman.
He's like, hey, you're going celibate. I still got my sister.
Ew, gross.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why he's Kingsguard, right?
Yeah, basically, so he could be around Cersei.
So, I just, after watching that scene, there's just like this tiny part of me that thinks, well, maybe Jaime knows the truth about Jon, and it's interesting because he's also protecting Jon, if he does.
Right. Yeah, by not exposing him or not, raising suspicion if he doesn't know but suspects. Because he knows what happened when Ned, came back from the Tower of Joy with a baby.
Right. Absolutely.
He had to have heard that. And he knew what was going on with Rhaegar for the most part, and the king in general.
Lyanna. And
the other thing that we know from the bathhouse scene with Brienne, this is great, so good for bringing this up, Kristin. You're the best. We know that he was sworn to keep the king's secrets. When he tells Brienne, he blurts out about killing the king because he was going to burn the city to the ground, burn them all,
right.
Haunts him. The Brienne says, why didn't you tell the truth? And he basically responds that he's also sworn to keep the king's secrets, and that his honor for some reason compelled him to do that, to keep that part of his oath, because he just could not let the king burn the city to the ground. I guess he was unable physically to keep that oath. He had to stop it. Whereas, even as much as he wants to tell the truth about Aerys and what happened, he physically is able to restrain himself from doing so. So he manages to keep that oath, which is another sign of honor as Jaime perceives it, his own type of honor. But my point with all this is that Jaime knows the king's secrets, which means he may know the prince's secrets.
Absolutely.
Which means he may know that Rhaegar eloped
with Lyanna,
which means he may know that Jon is a Targaryen,
so,
which means puts this whole sequence in a brand new light that I'm only putting into context right now because of you, Kristin. Thank you so much for illuminating this scene.
I had the same thought. I mean, for the very first time this week, we're rewatching the episode, and I rewatched that scene several times because something like Spidey sense. I just sat there. I'm like, something's up with this. Why is he seeking him out?
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing too. Like, it's really weird that he's targeting Jon here with this intimidation. Like, there's no reason for it. And I guess now we have the reason. I think it's safe to assume that Jaime is likely suspects that Jon is in fact a Targaryen.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
I think it's likely. I really think it's likely now that we're discussing this. And I've never really heard it mentioned before, too. So hopefully the word spreads from here and people will suspect it.
People will come back to this particular podcast and be like, so much was called. Or they'll be like, what idiots. Either way.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Speculative fools. Seeing clues in all the wrong places.
These people have way too much time on their hands.
Should have pushed them from the tower when we had the chance.
What was your number 3?
My number 3 is the Bran assassination attempt, and we're in the room. Rob is in there talking with Catelyn, and she's super shell shocked, like on the Walking Dead cast when they play those clips, and she is all messed up, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah.
that one guy from Night of the Living Dead or something. Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up. I can't listen to that without laughing every time. The cat is all messed up, you know? She's shell-shocked to the extreme, can't focus on the duties of the lordship. You know, she can't even think about the appointments that need to be made in the absence of people that left with Ned to head south, Jory and all his top-notch, like, big dog crew that he's bringing with him to serve with him being Hand. Think about that. That really shakes up Winterfell. You know, there's a lot of changes that are going to be administrative changes that are going to need to be made. And she's just not having it. Maester Lewin is calmly trying to approach her about this. And Rob steps up and he's like, listen, I'll make the appointments. We'll talk about it first thing in the morning. Lewin's like, thank you. And he dismisses him. Then he needs to talk with his mom. He tries to encourage her to, you know, come out of her funk that she's in. PTSD, like to the extreme here.
Yeah. To
the point of neglecting her other, not toddler, but very young child who needs a mother. So it's powerful moment and just in a lot of ways. And you can really see how stressed Catelyn is. She can't deal with it. She hears the wolves howling and it's just driving her crazy. Will you shut the wolves up? Mm-hmm. Like, close the windows, like driving me insane. And Rob goes to close the windows and sees that, oh, they're howling because there's a fire in the library. And I'm thinking, fuck, library fire? Like, nothing pisses me off more than a library fire.
More than books burning.
Yeah, I am, like, ferociously mad about the Library of Alexandria being burned to the ground. I think that our society and our world is suffering to this day from the knowledge that was lost in that singular event.
Absolutely.
Knowledge from the ages, Atlantean knowledge, potentially, that like I can't even express my sorrow over that. So
Jefferson's library.
People, was that destroyed as well?
Most of it, yeah.
Oh my God. So we're back in the room, and the library is on fire, and Rob rushes off to deal with that, and in walks the assassin, and holy shit. Watching this for the first time, I was so surprised by this. And he's just so ominous. And the way he articulates what he's doing, he's not a smart guy. You know, he's there on a job. He's somebody that won't have the intelligence to say something bad enough to relay anything that will harm the person who hired him. he says, "It's a mercy. You weren't supposed to be here. No one was supposed to be here."
He's like, "I just lit something on fire. What are you doing here?" Yeah.
Like she wouldn't leave the room to take care of her 6-year-old. She's not going to leave for a library fire. You know what I mean? And she pulls out the dagger, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is so twisted.
Yeah.
And Catelyn just rushes, no hesitation, hands on the blade. And I'm thinking, damn, like she is hardcore.
That is one of the most hardcore things ever.
Super hardcore, and she sees that blade. She knows it's Valyrian steel by the way the torchlight glints off it and shimmers off the ripples. She's not an idiot, she's seen ice for years.
It's only a possible plot hole, and probably one of the smallest plot holes in the entire story. But she saw that dagger. She knows Littlefinger better than anybody else knows Littlefinger, and she didn't recognize the blade.
But then again, she hasn't seen Littlefinger until, from the moment that he was cut by Brandon Stark, when in dueling over her a favor. The last time that she had seen Peter Baelish was when he was carried off, cut from collarbone to navel, and she didn't see him again until she was brought to him in King's Landing. So she may not have known that he had that dagger. Right. He definitely did not have it at that point in time. It was probably acquired once he came into power, we can say. So that does not surprise me. She would not have necessarily known it was his dagger. A month had passed, so I guess it was enough time for Littlefinger to have learned that Bran fell. Littlefinger would not have known that Bran was pushed by Jaime or that it had any connection with that. But since he was already sowing seeds of discontent between the Lannisters and the Starks, he decided to send an assassin and with a blade that could be tied back to Tyrion to further put them at odds. So damn, he's smart, man.
Littlefinger.
Yeah.
Glad he's dead.
And, I'm glad he's dead too from a story perspective, but also I'm really sad from a story perspective because I would have loved to see what he would have contributed in the end game.
Oh, we're going to see him. Further. He'll be in season 8. You know that, right? Arya's going to use his face.
Oh,
I guarantee it.
Yeah, I freaking hope so. It would be a major missed opportunity if she does not.
She cut his throat. She didn't touch his face.
So yeah, I can pretty much, agree with you. We're going to see Peter Baelish, season 8. So, yeah!
Yay!
Aidan Gillen, we'll see you again, brother. I'm looking forward to that. So Catelyn eventually is thrown to the ground here and hopeless, watching as the assassin with the Valyrian steel blade moves towards her incapacitated 7-year-old, or however old Bran is at this time. And just at the last moment, unnamed direwolf Summer, at this point he's unnamed, lunges in. You can hear his footsteps approaching like a horse or something, scampering through the stone halls, and he lunges in and just rips this fucking guy's throat out and sprays blood everywhere.
So awesome.
This is an epic moment of direwolf vengeance, and you know that these wolves are connected to their humans. He was just outside howling because of the fire, and he sensed Bran in trouble,
Or was it Bran in summer?
Or it could have been Bran in summer for all we know. Yeah, it's not clear. That would be very interesting. And I'm going to add a little detail here from the books that it's not a spoiler, but it'll enhance this moment and make you guys want to read more. Because I'm really, during this break, I want you guys to read the books.
Please read.
You have like 13, 14, 15, 16 months. Go read the books, man. This is what I did between season 4 and 5. And I was not upset by it. But the show's ahead of the books at this point, so you're not going to be spoiled. You're going to get to experience a whole new storylines, which will blow your mind. But this moment is great in the books. The direwolf rips the guy's throat out and it sprays blood all over Catelyn's face. And so we don't see that in the show. There's no blood on her face, but it kind of zooms in on her face and her reaction to this scene. And she looks relieved and happy to have the direwolf there and protecting her son. And there's a moment where she sort of smiles. And it's the first smile we've seen her had the whole series yet. But in the books, it's a whole nother level of mania, you could say. She not only smiles, she starts laughing uncontrollably at this moment and looks like a maniac in the mind's eye when reading it, with the blood sprayed all over her face, holding her shredded hands up, just gushing blood, and she's just cackling like a demon or something. So read the books, because you get lots of cool stuff.
I totally forgot about that till right now. Yeah, I remember that.
How epic is that?
Yep, absolutely. Catelyn, man, she's an interesting character.
Really, really interesting character.
Don't hate on Catelyn.
All right, what's about you? That's pretty much it. That's it for my number 3. Just covering that really cool account. So my next two are actually like they're small, but I save them for my top 2 because they're kind of my favorite points about the whole episode. Awesome.
And of course, use the rustling of papers. Okay, so this is one when you told me about covering this episode with you. I was so excited. I was so excited for this one scene of Cersei and Catelyn. Cersei comes in and all of a sudden she is, if you see her, she's wrapped up, right? Which
Cersei.
Yes. She's wrapped up in her shawl, right? So to me, she's already concealing something, right? The way that she's carrying herself, the way that she's in there, her misdirection with trying to tell Catelyn how very sorry she is about Bran and how she prays to the mother and blah, blah, blah. And Catelyn's just eating it up, right?
She's totally diverting Catelyn here.
But she's telling this story about this black-haired boy, right?
Yes.
And so he had a fever. He was born. He was taken away, never to be seen again. She hates Robert. She's always hated Robert. She hated his whoring. She hated the fact that he was fat and he wasn't Jaime. She hated the fact
that their wedding night he said Lyanna in bed with her.
Right. So she's had his baby, right?
Yeah.
I am of the thought that this baby never died, that she had the baby sent away to be raised in a whorehouse, wherever. She didn't care. Go away. And I think that baby is Gendry.
That would be very interesting. I would not be surprised. I think that would be a really cool twist. I'm not leaning towards it.
Well, it would make him a rightful heir.
Yeah, that would be would be really interesting.
It would kick Cersei off the throne, right?
Yep.
But at this point, so I started looking for holes in it. Right? Like what are the reasons that we're saying no to this? Right?
Right.
Now, an unknown lord paid for his apprentice fee to be a blacksmith, right? Who I think we can all pretty much agree that was Jon Arryn, right? Jon Arryn had taken an interest in him.
Interesting.
And trying to track down all 20 of Robert Baratheon's children, right? And so the Baratheon stag is still the main theme on the main theme logo. So the Baratheon house still matters, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's because Jon is going to legitimize him. But go ahead.
I know that. I've heard you say that, which he could. It would be interesting if he didn't need to legitimize him, right? Yeah. And so what's interesting is that Cersei's prophecy, right, is what we all kind of hang our hat on with when it comes to Cersei's story, her story arc and her end game and what's going to happen. We're in the last of her prophecy anyways, right? Which is why I totally don't believe that she's pregnant. She's a lying teenage high school girl trying to keep her boyfriend right now. But
and try to manipulate him to do what she wants.
Right, lying teenage.
Which is like the important part of keeping him, I think. I think that like she wants to keep him, but she also like wants to keep him in line.
Well, that's Cersei right there in a sentence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the prophecy says that Cersei will have 3 golden-haired children and gold will also be their shrouds, right? So she's had her 3 kids, and her 3 golden-haired kids have died, right? Robert will have 20 kids. Well, so this is one of Robert's kids. There's nowhere that says that Cersei is not going to have a black-haired child. So to me, it's possible that this black-haired child still lives on and that it's Gendry. Because if Cersei tells Robert he's dead, right, and she sends him off, then he doesn't know that he exists anymore, and she doesn't have to worry about him anymore because nobody's going to tell him that he is, the rightful child of Cersei and Robert. And he never really knew anything until he was headed for the Night's Watch. But anyways, it would be interesting because I've also heard the theories about how, there could be a love triangle between Jon and Dany and somebody else. And there was a big article about it being Tyrion or whatever. But what if it's Gendry, right? What if it's like the whole two bastards that are really rightful people,
wow.
right? Because this whole show is always about misdirection. It's always about a twist or what we see really is not what is in the story, right? So I don't know. It's a thought that I've had for quite a while. And I feel like this scene is the scene that kind of alludes to Gendry being legitimate. That would be really cool. Yeah, very interesting. I hadn't really considered that much before. So you're giving me all these thoughts. I love it. But you were about to disagree with me. What were you going to say? I was. In this scene, Cersei basically says that the Maesters or somebody took his body away. I never saw it again, never went to the crypt. But the way she described it, the impression that I got was that she was in a room with Robert and the dead baby, the body of the baby. Maesters took the body. Robert held her back as she was kind of freaking out, enraged himself, doing the things that men do to let you know they care. I got the impression that Robert was there and had seen the body. So, I mean, it's up for interpretation. And the other thing about the prophecy is that, what is it? The Maggie, the frog, the woods witch says, the king will have 20 children or however many, you will have 3. So that implies that, like, if this story is true, which it seems to be, there's no reason for her to make it up, unless to garner false sympathy. It contradicts the prophecy, in my opinion, because Maggie says, you will have 3 children, and who knows? That would be crazy if Gendry was legitimate. It would be fun. It'd be really fun. And Bran would know. Yes. Well, as long as you tell him exactly where to look in history. Yeah. Jon shows up with Gendry to Winterfell, and Jon's like, "You're Aegon Targaryen. You're Gendry Baratheon." Right. Legitimate. That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Is that it for your number 2? Yeah, that was my number 2. Very little. All right. My number 2 is Arya throwing Lion's Tooth in the river and besting Prince Joffrey, the little bitch. I hate him. I love Arya so much in this scene. Jon told her to something really cool. Jon tells her, you have to work at it every day after he gives her needle, which I feel like we glossed over a little bit. But it's a really significant moment. He tells her you got to work at it every day, and she does. She is committed to mastering the art of the sword, and she's out there practicing with the butcher's boy on day 1 on the Kingsroad, or whatever day it is. We don't know the exact timeline, but she's doing it, and Sansa gets the shit scared out of her by Ilan Payne, the king's justice who has had his tongue ripped out, and then she turns around and the Hound scares her. And Joffrey whisks her away like such a glorious prince. And they go to stroll the meadows and explore the countryside. And Joffrey's getting her drunk and all. And Arya's fighting. And Joffrey has to be a little bitch and try to show off for his lady. And thinks that it's cool to, cut the butcher's boy's face with his sword, Lion's Tooth. Who Renly laughs at the name at one point, I think, hilariously. It's a pretty funny name too. Like, I kind of like it. Lion's Tooth. Yeah, it's great. So Arya hits him on the back with her stick when he's cutting Micah,
and two wolf attacks in one episode, man. Nymeria comes in out of nowhere to save Arya after Joffrey's swinging his sword at her full tilt. Jesus, like Arya could have been cut in half this episode so easily.
Yeah,
like
but she's
look
quick.
At that. She's quick. She told Jon, I can be quick.
Yeah.
I can be quick. Great little line. And Nymeria comes in, rips the blade from Joffrey's hand, and Arya is the one holding the blade to Joffrey's throat at that moment. And we see Joffrey's true character come out, whining like a little boy. No, no, please, don't kill me.
If only she'd run him through then.
Yeah. Oh, so much trauma would have been saved, but she would have been in big, big trouble.
I almost think it would have been worth it.
Yeah, probably.
I hate him.
Yeah, it's just so awesome. She's got the drop on him now, and she takes the sword and throws it in the river. And Robert just rubs it in further. You let this little girl disarm you.
Such a great moment.
Great line. And Joffrey's like, eh. He's constantly trying
clubs.
Yeah, it is true. Shut up. He's such a little bitch,
Such
man.
An ass.
It's great. It's awesome. So that's my number two is that whole scene there and the the dispatching of Lion's Tooth to the annals of history.
Gosh.
What's your number one?
My number one has to do with one of the very first scenes of the episode and the talk of ghost grass.
Oh yeah, awesome.
So ghost grass. So, I think that the entire world south of the wall has the same story, just it's different in whatever culture they're in. So for the Dothraki, ghost grass is taller than a human on horseback with stalks as pale as milk glass. It is an invasive plant that overwhelms other grass. So Dothraki believes that ghost grass glows with the spirits of the damned and will one day cover the entire world. I got this off of... So ghost grass also comes up in season 2 with Xaro hearing of magic coming back into the world in the form of ghost grass growing outside the Shadowlands and a Dothraki Khalasar led by a woman and her dragons, which I think could actually be foreshadowing to when Daenerys finally crosses the Narrow Sea with everyone.
Awesome.
So I think that for the Dothraki, their end of the world prophecy has to do with ghost grass, which it glows, it's white as milk. I think that is their interpretation of a White Walker. So they're all preparing for this long night, for this great
and it glows
war.
with the souls of the dead.
Exactly.
That's the White Walkers reanimating these dead people.
Right.
And having these dead souls like enhancing the power of the White Walkers. They're emanating with the power of the dead.
Right.
So it's like metaphor for that. Wow, great job.
So, it's like...
You got to guest host again, Kristin.
Oh, I so want to. I'm totally down. This has been super fun. But
awesome.
So the Dothraki, they've never crossed the sea before. Well, they've done that, right? And Daenerys, dragons have been gone for years. Oh, here they are, right?
Yeah.
You've got all of these things that are happening as the ghost grass or the White Walkers or the army of the dead or whatever is slowly making their way down. And they're slowly making their way down because they're decimating everything in their path. There is nothing behind them except...
Oh, God.
Right?
Just like the ghost grass.
Right, exactly. So I just think that it's so interesting. In season 1, episode 2, we are dropped this huge nugget of information that most of us glossed over because we're like, blah, 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 Dothraki, who cares, right? At this
point. Yeah, blah, blah, blah is, wow, that guy's tall.
Yeah, is that Jason Momoa? Okay. Like that, yeah. That's the extent of what's going on in season 2. Dany is still really, really weak. She can't even ride a horse. She's got cuts everywhere. She can't figure out how to please her husband. There's so much that's happening, but we're all forgetting the overarching theme of this entire show. And that is what is coming, right?
Yeah.
And it's
brilliant.
So anyways, that's my number 1.
Wow. Great. That was awesome. I had never made that parallel before either. So cool. Okay, my number
You.
one. Get ready to have your mind blown.
Excited.
Yeah, it's the death of Lady and the waking of Bran.
Yay!
Because as we find out with Miri Mazdur and Daenerys, say it if you think of it before I do, only death can pay for life.
That's right.
Right. So I was watching this and thinking about it as I was putting together my top 5 and everything, and I write for my number 1, Lady dies, Bran wakes, and it hits me. Only death can pay for life. Right. And it just made this huge connection that it's been such a recurring theme throughout this whole series.
Tell me you have a list. Death. You have a list, right?
I don't. I'm just thinking of it right now. The death of Drogo and everything. Well, first of all, Miri says only death can pay for life, and that's there. She's implying that Drogo's horse will pay for his death or his life, but then it turns into Dany's baby, the horse, Drogo, and Miri Mazdur, and possibly the potential sacrifice of Dany's own life, paying for the life of the dragons.
A great trade-off.
Really cool trade-off. Sucks we lost Drogo because he was badass, mega badass. But we have that. We have what else? Can you think of any other examples?
I know. I'm trying to think right now.
We have Jaqen, who killed himself to pay for Arya's life, also at the House of Black and White. And right after he says to her, only death can pay for life, and it looks like he's going to poison her, make her drink the poison, but instead he drinks it himself and completely blows her mind.
Oh, yeah.
With that. We have the death of the dragon Viserion, potentially paying for the life of a newborn child between Dany and Jon.
You have Tywin dying and Tyrion living, but Tyrion was the one that killed Tywin.
Right. So yeah, he paid for his own life with Tyrion's
by killing his dad, but he also killed Shay too.
I guess Tyrion's life is he's small, but his life force is so huge it took 2.
Barristan Selmy died, and Grey Worm ended up living.
Right. Oh man, and yeah, there's so many examples where this has kind of happened in this show, but it just hit me that only death can pay for life. And
Summer died for Bran.
Summer died for Bran as well. We've had 2 direwolves die for Bran. And even Bran sort of died for Bran. Bran died to birth the 3-eyed raven, basically, as Mira said in that line. Bran, you died in that cave. We had Hodor.
Hodor died for Mira.
For Mira and Bran.
Children of the Forest, they all died for Bran and Mira.
Yeah. So.
Benjen. Benjen died for Jon.
For Jon, right at the end there, he gave his own life to let Jon ride off on the horse. This is it just hit me all of a sudden. I was super excited to. But that's my number 1.
Oh, I love it.
The death of Lady, the birth or the rebirth, the living of the the revitalization of Bran, and the concept of how only death can pay for life. How about notes? You got any more notes to cover?
Gosh, I don't think so. I think we've pretty much. Let me just see if there is. I mean, we've really, really covered it. I would like to know, and I didn't have the time to look, but I might look this week. Is that? Did you notice that the theme music seems really slow in the first season, and that it seems that it's at a quicker tempo in this past season?
I never noticed that. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out.
That was just one thing that I was wondering. I just never had the time to actually watch both of them together, but it'd be interesting to know.
Good catch. Yeah, we'll have to examine that and get back to that next week or something.
Yeah.
Let's see. I thought it was interesting. I recently learned that Tyrion, the actor Peter Dinklage, is a vegetarian. And so every piece of meat he eats on set is like tofu.
Gross.
Essentially.
You know what? It should be noted that it is nice to see Tyrion light. he's very light. He's a lightness to the show, you know, and he's not, he doesn't have any of that anymore. He's very dark.
Sadly. Yep, he's very jovial. He doesn't let his dwarfhood drag him down, that's for sure. He makes the most of every moment. But he walks in for that meeting breakfast. He wakes up hungover in a stable pen or something.
I love it.
So great. He walks in and he's gonna hang out with Jaime and Cersei and the kids to eat breakfast, and he says bacon burnt black.
And I was thinking that fish.
Yeah, and Dinklage, the actor, must have been thinking, "Oh, that's disgusting," as he's delivering that line, you know.
I love.
So that was Dinklage. Cool. Me too. There was a moment with Jaime, which I forgot to include in my foreshadowing, where he's talking with Jon, right? And we discussed the significance of that interaction in its entirety, which is really cool, and we don't want to forget about that. But there's also sort of a prophetic line in there where he's talking about the Night's Watch with Jon, and he says, you know, I hope you're happy with the Night's Watch, you know, whatever. If not, it's only for life. Right?
Right.
And that foreshadows that it is only for
life.
For life. You know, Jon dies. And then after his death, he leaves the Night's Watch. So he doesn't end up being stuck with the Night's Watch, but it is for life. It's for his first life, at least.
And his watch had ended.
Yeah, he was unbound by the terms. So I thought that was a cool little line foreshadowing him actually being able to leave the Night's Watch after his death and resurrection.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. I noticed Arya, or Nymeria, is not doing what she's told by Arya.
Very Arya.
Yeah, very Arya, exactly. So Arya. All these wolves are just like their dudes, you know, their people.
Right. Well, and you know what else is, just staying with like the dog theme, going to the Hound, is that you can see that Sandor has such a soft spot for children. You know, he didn't have to try and calm down Sansa or try and make her feel better. That wasn't his job.
Right. But he at least has a soft spot for Sansa, for sure. Because that butcher's boy, man.
Yeah, but
also
he also
child.
has a soft spot for Arya.
Oh, really? I don't remember.
I think he had a soft spot for Arya. He protected her. He trained her.
Oh, right. Derp. Yeah, he totally had a soft spot for Arya. He seems to have a latent respect for the Starks. I think he envies the Starks or something.
Well, and then there's the little girl that he buried last season, you know.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's just that damn butcher's boy. He had to harden himself to that situation because of his occupation. But remember, Ned confronts him about it, and the butcher's boy, he ran him down. He ran. Yeah, not fast.
Just so rude.
Yeah, so brutal. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, the Hound too. I love the Hound, man.
I know you do.
Yeah, I got my Hound helm sitting right there.
This is probably my favorite picture of you.
Oh, in the helm?
Hound helm. Hound.
Winter's come. Cunt. Another interesting thing. When Robert and Ned are talking, and Robert's like, "This is real country. I've got half a mind to ride, leave it all behind, and never come back. The wind at our sides, couple tavern wenches to keep our beds warm tonight." You know, and Ned gives him a look, and he says, "If you'd asked me 20 years ago," and like gives him a look like, "Ha, if you only knew," you know. And that says 20 years ago, we did not do that. There were no tavern wenches during the war 20 years ago. I did not sleep with anybody else during that time period 20 years ago.
Certainly not somebody named Wyla.
Yeah, Wyla, who he mentions in a few minutes, but he gives him this look that says, "I've been living with this stigma of fathering a bastard and betraying the honor of my marriage for 20 years. If I had known what was going to happen, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would have done it."
Yeah.
Because I'm living with this stigma anyway.
Might as well.
You know, and I never noticed that look that he gives him. It's like they like Dave and Dan explained the situation to Sean Bean, that he's not actually Ned's father, that he didn't sleep with anybody else. And the look that Ned gives Robert here is just incredible. Like, go back and watch it, because it's so telling. I never picked up on it before, and it just like, it's the most significant piece of acting, I think.
This is what I'm saying. This episode is just chock full of it.
Yeah. So many good moments. Other things worth mentioning. Next time I see you, you'll be all in black. Well, it always was my color.
It was always my color.
It was always my color. There's that. And why do you read so much, to Tyrion?
Oh, the
and
wet
he goes on explanation. My brother had a sword, and I have my mind. And a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
I wrote that down.
Which is a great line.
Yeah. Everything is better with some wine in the belly.
Yep, and even though their relationship between Jon and Tyrion is off to a rocky start. Tyrion is being antagonistic towards Jon, calling him a bastard and whatnot, and kind of rubbing it in that he's going up to join these fucking losers at the Night's Watch, like, dumbass, you're a stupid enough dumbass, you stupid bastard, to believe this your whole life, and like everybody else knows the truth, Snarks and Grumpkins, moron, and but then at the end, he gives him his wine and offers him the drink, and reaches out, like, creates a bridge between the two of them. So it gives him a look, and it shows that he does, see the honor in Jon, because Jon responds back with, the Night's Watch it's like I said earlier, it guards the realms from Snarks and Grumpkins. I know, bastard, but he does see the honor and respect it, and gives him the wine, which symbolizes that, and sort of gives him a knowing look, like, I like you, after that, before the scene cuts. So that was cool to see as well. We didn't even talk about the whole, like, Dany getting sex lessons. That whole thing. I
know. And, I guess it's just what Dany's becoming a woman. She's starting to realize her power, right? Right.
Yeah. She sees the dragon eggs. Oh, that's another.
I called it the domestication of Drogo.
Yeah. Yes. She totally, like, puts him in his place there. And he looks a little awkward at first, but after a few seconds, he totally starts to get it. He gets it, and rolls with it.
He's like, oh, wait, I think I like this better.
Yeah. It's so cool. But there's another significant moment where, it starts off as a rape scene, basically, where she's, like, crying out and in unhappiness as he's taking her from behind, like the Jiqui or whichever handmaiden said, like, the Dothraki takes slaves like a hound takes a bitch. Are you a slave, to Daenerys? No, she's not. So that's happening at this point, and she's, like, crying out. She looks very unhappy, but then she looks up and sees the dragon eggs, and starts smiling. And it looks like she's enjoying it at that point. But to me, this is interesting because we've already heard in this episode the metaphor for the eggs hatching, or the foreshadowing of that. I feel like Dany being inseminated at this moment is like the eggs being fertilized. Her dragon eggs being fertilized at this moment.
Totally.
It's like Drogo's life force is passing through her into those eggs. Metaphorically at this point, and it's illustrated by what we see on screen, which I picked up for the first time, so I thought that was really cool. And I loved, like, I was getting nervous for Dany there when she's resisting Drogo, who's trying to mount her, and she says no, and he's like, gets a little bit forceful with her, no, and turns, and he looks like he's about to, like, just do it anyway and force it. But she says to him, tonight I would look upon your face. And it sort of hits him, like, and I just thought that was a really powerful statement. I don't know, I thought that was really cool. Perfect words. Tonight I would look upon your face.
Absolutely.
And I loved seeing Ilan Payne this episode as well. I missed that actor. He left the show after a couple seasons when he was diagnosed with some type of cancer.
Oh no!
But I'm under the impression that he has made a recovery.
Oh, good.
So I hope that's true.
He'll come back to be killed by Arya.
hopefully we get to see him come back and have his head cut off.
Yay.
Maybe by, Oathkeeper. So it's Ned's sword, who he used to behead Ned, eventually coming back to kill Ilan Payne. Either that, or he's supposed to be a really good swordsman, so he could be good. He could do a lot of good, theoretically, in the wars to come.
Okay. Then Arya kills him.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and Lady's death could also be paying for Nymeria's life, so that could be important. Nymeria may play a role to come in the future.
I would really like to see Nymeria and Ghost like side by side. In the, it'd be nice to get some dire wolves going on for season 8.
Ghost and Nymeria together, just commanding a pack of like 100 wolves.
Yes.
Raging against White Walkers or Whites and maybe even Lannister army men. With armor mail of dragon glass so that they could just go through and just fuck some shit up, right? Oh, man. They could make, you know how like these steeds, like armored steeds you see in like medieval stuff, where the horses actually wear armor. They can make armor for the direwolves. Like how fucking cool would that be? That would be amazing. That would be the coolest shit ever. I would shit myself literally, much as Tywin did. But I would try not to die.
At least he had a hole to do it in.
Yeah, yeah. So that pretty much covers my notes. Yeah, I mean, I think that the only thing that I hadn't talked about was a couple points with domesticating Drogo and Sandor and how he really is human. Joffrey is just the worst. Just the worst. The worst. Ugh. Everything about him. He and Cersei, in different ways. Like the wolf is gone. No, there's no sign of the dire wolf. Your Grace. Well, that's that then. They have another wolf. They have another wolf. Just to let you know. I was like, oh Cersei. My God. Cersei, murderous bitch. Total. Yeah, she is the freaking Hound's favorite word. Yes. I'll see you next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday. Apparently some people still haven't heard that. So see you next Tuesday. Yes. For anybody who is unaware. All right, let's take a little break and we'll come back for more. Stay with us. We're back with some Game of Thrones news. Our first item is an article by Hypebeast. HBO announces Game of Thrones miniseries Conquest and Rebellion. The final season of Game of Thrones may be a year or even 2 away, but HBO has something to whet fans' appetites in the meantime. A brand new animated series, Conquest and Rebellion, will offer fans an in-depth look at Westeros and the history of the Seven Kingdoms leading up to the events of the show's very first season. Kicking off with the history of House Targaryen in Valeria's last scion, the series features looks at all of the houses of note and is even narrated by stars like Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Sophie Turner, Aidan Gillen, Conleth Hill, and Pilou Asbæk. And should also mention Harry Lloyd, who narrated the first installment, which has been released already. Is that who played Viserys? It is. I saw parts of that, and I was like, that's Viserys' voice. Okay. Nice. Yeah, he does the Duncan Egg novellas, too, in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which you can download on Audible. And for anybody listening, you guys are going to love this. You can sign up for a free month of audible.com. If you want to start reading the books, you can download a book for free. Pick any book you want. It could be Game of Thrones. It could be anything. Then you can cancel your Audible membership if you want. You don't even have to follow through, but you can keep your free book. And if you also, I recently discovered, thanks to Lisa Moreno, who sent me a free book, that as long as you haven't received a book from a friend before, you can send a free book to your friends. So anybody listening to this that wants a free book from Audible, send us a message to our email, which I'll give out in a little bit. I think it's game at podcastica.com. And I'll send you a free audiobook.
That's awesome.
Just send us your email. Free audiobook, free of cost. No, I'm happy to do it. I have all the Game of Thrones audiobooks. I've got all the ancillary novellas, the Princess and the Queen, the Rogue Prince, the Duncan Egg novellas. I've got, you name it, Ice and Fire related. I have it. So, send me your email and I'll send you a free book. And it's amazing.
That's a good deal.
So, perfect for brushing up on your Westerosian lore, Conquest and Rebellion will be available exclusively to those who pre-order the 7th season of Game of Thrones on Blu-ray and DVD. The sets, along with the exclusive animated bonus disc, are out December 12th.
Nice.
And what is it? It's going to be like 100 minutes total or something like that. 80 minutes, something like that. But they're just releasing little installments. The first one's already out. We've posted it on the Game of Microphones page. If you search for Conquest and Rebellion, I'm sure you can find it. And it's really cool. I definitely enjoyed watching it big time.
Awesome. I want to watch those. It's always one of those things where it's like I need to sit down and just watch it,
Yeah, definitely. Our next item is an article by Innovation and Technology Today. Just how big can the Game of Thrones universe become? Game of Thrones is one of the most successful TV series of all time, and each episode is watched by an average of 25.1 million viewers. That's huge, especially for a paid network. Jeez, unprecedented. That number is steadily rising as the fantasy epic heads towards its endgame, and that is in part due to the success of the franchise branching out onto other platforms and attracting greater numbers of fans. In fact, fans of the world and its characters don't just have to watch the series, they can also play numerous games based on the universe and, of course, read the original Song of Ice and Fire books that sparked this massive craze. The question is, just how big can the franchise become? Game of Thrones, a Telltale Games series, really awesome game. I highly recommend it if you haven't played it.
Oh, cool.
Was released. And have you played it, Kristin?
No, I just started playing the Walking Dead one.
Oh, you're going to love it. Melly Hutch, she's amazing in it. And yeah, the Game of Thrones one is great too, and it's got guest cameos from Peter Dinklage and Kit Harington, and really great story just all around. I love it. Love
awesome.
it.
Try it.
Yep. So the Telltale game series was released in December of 2014, Game of Thrones, and the events in the game took place just after the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones' third season. It actually takes place during the Red Wedding in the as the Stark forces are being slaughtered outside the Twins. It's pretty intense. Gosh. You are among the Stark forces and witnessing the carnage around you, trying to escape and fight and whatnot. It's pretty awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So instead of giving players a chance to play as popular characters they know and love, like Jon Snow and Tyrion, the story-focused game developers opted for a different angle. The game was still set in the world of the TV series, and events from the show were happening at the same time as those in the game, but there's a completely original storyline which is centered on characters from the House Forrester from the North, people who had never been mentioned or even appeared in the show, but they're responsible, just to add, for the cultivation of ironwood, which is used. It's like a really dense wood that's pretty much as strong as iron, hence its name, but it's used in the North for construction, and it's probably the reason that Winterfell is able to have flat rooftops on its towers, even with like the weight of all the heavy snow and whatnot.
Interesting.
So there's an in-world explanation for that, which would be a major architectural flaw otherwise, which I've heard people criticize the castle for. Shout out to Shadiversity on YouTube. It's a guy named Shad from Australia who analyzes all this cool stuff, swords and castles, and he covers some Game of Thrones things.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, this story for the Game of Thrones game is an interesting concept, opening up a whole new level of possibilities, which lead to various storylines. The problem with the game is that to have the slightest clue about what was going on, the players had to have watched the series. It threw players straight into the action as the phrase betrayed the Starks at the Twins, and someone who had never watched the show would not have known why they were doing the things they were doing. The Telltale game was a good way for pre-existing fans to enjoy George R. R. Martin's world in another way, but it wasn't a great option for bringing in new fans and increasing the show's viewing figures. There have been other games that have served to introduce new viewers to Game of Thrones. One of his most successful games is the Game of Thrones slot game from Microgaming, which is now one of the most popular 32 red online slots, I guess online casino gaming. The title features all the main great houses of Westeros, including Lannister, Stark, Baratheon, and Targaryen, and the side game allows players to travel around various locations on the flip of a Bravosi coin. It also boasts the outstanding music from the show to really draw players in. Players don't need any knowledge of the series to enjoy and jump straight into this, but they can learn things from the game which may make them want to watch the show.
Yay.
The online gambling market is absolutely booming and is projected to rise to $59 billion by 2020.
My goodness.
That is insane. And I'm not a gambler, just to say, so I'm not condoning gambling by reading this. It's just an interesting little tidbit. For this reason, franchises have found that they can boost their overall revenue by offering content for this thriving sector of the economy. The Game of Thrones slot at 32 Red is not the only example of this. Other slots that have helped boost their respective franchises include Tomb Raider at Casino Kings and Hitman at Britain's Got Talent Games. Despite the Telltale series and the Game of Thrones slot offering players other ways of enjoying the universe during the show's off-season, gamers are hungry for more. Something that has been touted for many years now is a fully open world title that allows players to really explore the landscape of Westeros and Essos while taking control of central characters like Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow. Gamers are clearly envisioning something on the same scale as titles like The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, and Fallout 4. Recent reports suggest they may be soon to be about to have their wish granted. Elder Scrolls developers Bethesda have been rumored to be in the process of creating a Game of Thrones title, but nothing has been officially confirmed yet. With HBO's Game of Thrones gaining more viewers and becoming increasingly popular each year, it would be wise to assume that there will be additional games based on the much-loved fantasy in the future. And with spin-off series also in the pipeline, this universe has the potential to continue to expand infinitely. And I heard that Target had released, they'd updated one section of their website that showed a Bethesda Game of Thrones game, but a spokesman for Target came out and said that was false. So I wouldn't put your hopes too much for that, but that would be amazing. Skyrim was such a good game. Do you ever play Skyrim?
No, I get my hands on a little controller and my character dies within like 10 seconds. So I don't play games, but I'm really good at watching. So.
Oh, cool. Well, you'd be fine at the Game of Thrones game because it's a different style game that doesn't require the type of three-dimensional controller capability that games like this would, which is you'll find out from playing the Walking Dead game as well. It's same style as that essentially. But yeah, the game Skyrim it's basically as close to Game of Thrones as you can get in video games right now. It's awesome. So the creators of that, if they did a Game of Thrones game, it would just be off the charts. Fantastic. I
would play
really
it.
Want that to happen.
I would play it.
Yeah,
that's something I would
shot.
play. I'd put it on easy and I would play.
Yeah, absolutely worth a shot. Our next article is from comicbook.com. Game of Thrones taking a page from The Walking Dead for final season.
This is exciting.
Nice. With only one season remaining in Game of Thrones, the HBO series will learn from AMC's The Walking Dead when it comes to preventing spoilers. In Game of Thrones' penultimate season, the drama in Westeros often leaked online ahead of any episodes airing due to hacks or spies on set, revealing the show's secrets. Just as a side note, I managed to stay entirely spoiler-free, except for one thing which I sort of deduced based on a general attitude, but not a specific spoiler. So while the former won't be combated with HBO's new method, spies on set or hacks at least, the method or the spies are going to have a much more difficult time ruining the viewing experience for fans eager to learn who ends up on the Iron Throne. According to HBO's president of original programming, Casey Bloys, Game of Thrones will film extra scenes and alternate endings to throw these folks off the scent of the one true ending.
Awesome.
Oh, man. Quote, I know in Game of Thrones that the ending, they're going to shoot multiple versions so that nobody really knows what happens, Blois said. You have to do that on a long show because when you're shooting something, people know. They're going to shoot multiple versions so that there's no real definitive answer until the end. This method was previously implemented by The Walking Dead when the AMC series was attempting to preserve the spoiler ending of Negan's Victims. The show's 6th season ended in a cliffhanger with a baseball bat crashing down on the camera, which was actually a character's skull. Ugh. Yeah, brutal and amazing. In an effort to throw on-set spies off of the victim's true identity, the cast and crew filmed death scenes for each of the 11 characters who were possible victims on The Walking Dead. HBO, however, may see little benefit despite the extra effort. Most of the Game of Thrones spoilers which surfaced online in this show's 7th season were the result of photos, scripts, or entire episodes being released online by hackers ahead of their airing. Game of Thrones is expected to return for its 8th and final season in 2019. The Walking Dead returns on October 22nd.
33 days away.
And thank you, Kristin. And a lot of our listeners are probably looking forward to the Walking Dead cast as well.
All Out War. What?
Yeah. Our other podcast covering the Walking Dead series. If you guys have heard this show, the Game of Microphones, but are not familiar with the Walking Dead cast, you should check it out. That's Jason's baby, Jason and Karen. That's where all this stems from.
My very first podcast I ever listened to.
Yeah, one of my first as well.
Thanks,
Jason
I
was a listener. I'm only here because I was a listener of the Walking Dead cast, and same with you.
Same with me.
So that's so cool. All right, that'll do it for news. Next we have Raven's Calls. Damn, Melissa is good at that Raven sound. You want to go first?
Sure.
All right, go for it.
Sarah Larkham says, there are many intriguing moments in this episode. Bran waking up when Lady is killed by Ned, Jon Snow giving Arya a needle, Cersei's confession to Catelyn about her and Robert's child, Ned saying to Jon Snow, when I see you next, I will tell you about your mother.
Yeah, so many cool moments, happy moments, sad moments, moments that we know
iconic
will be the last time. Yeah, super iconic moments. We kind of glossed over Jon giving Arya Needle, the sword, but that was really cool. Mm-hmm. I loved that, their little relationship there, and she goes to hug him, and he's like, be careful, the thing's fucking sharp. And she puts it down and jumps up and hangs around his neck and gives him a big hug. Just a really cool moment. All right, Angelica Garcia Decker says, Joffrey is the embodiment of the modern definition of cuck. All his blustering and shit talking, and as soon as Arya holds that sword up, he's crying, please don't hurt me. Big baby, boo. Also, in the book, as I recall, the part where Cersei and King Robert and Ned all have the kids around and everyone is arguing, Joffrey says, she threw Lion's Tooth in the river. And Renly scoffs at the name of the sword. Endlessly amusing. I agree. That's where it is from the book. That's where Renly is laughing at the name of the sword. Thanks, Angelica.
I love it. Laura Sotelo says, Tyrion slapping Joffrey. That'll never get old. Laura, I 100% agree. Oh, gosh, the best. One of the best. Did Cersei still have some humanity left in her, or was that my imagination? Jaime's convo with Jon about the first time you cut a man. Oh, man. All the feels with Jon saying his goodbyes to Arya and Bran. Freaking Catelyn. She was never a favorite. Oh, Ned, don't make promises you can't keep. Robert and Ned's conversation about Daenerys and the Dothraki. Holy foreshadowing. Tyrion was such an ass. Okay, seriously, did anyone else notice Arya's murderous look when Joffrey's little punk ass was on the ground? Everyone has come such a long way. It is known.
It is known. And yeah, Arya did look like she wanted to just gut Joffrey right on the spot there.
Too bad she never got the chance, right?
Oh, I know. It's too bad for Arya. Yeah, that would have been fun to see. Pick on someone your own size, Joffrey, and they'll be coming back for you. May Almardini says, what did the five finger... oh, I gotta say it. What did the five fingers say to the face? Slap!
Damn!
Tyrion teaching Joffrey a lesson is priceless, even 7 years later. With a smiley face. Catelyn is mean, the frown face. I wonder how she would have felt if she knew the truth. I feel her hate towards him was not justified. And I love the Dave Chappelle, Rick James reference there. I'm Rick James, bitch.
Rick James,
what do the five fingers
bitch.
say to the face? Slap. Unity.
We always say that. We always say, I'm Rick Grimes, bitch.
Yeah, I may have started that actually from that music video we did with Kill 'Em Off, when I did the Rick Grimes rap in the middle of it, and at the end I sort of just ad-libbed, I'm Rick Grimes, bitch.
Grimes, bitch. I love it.
That was funny.
Slapping is my favorite.
Yeah, definitely. So now we have a couple comments from the Rewatch from our Patreon group, where people rewatched the series a couple months ago. And LOL, right off the bat, our first comment is Kristin Howell. So you play you, Kristin, and I'll play Rima Jo for her response.
This will be fun. I wonder if Cersei was really sincere about Bran and Cat. She seemed genuine despite her part in Bran's fall.
And Rima Jo says, I think she was genuine about her loss of her first son, and that made her seem genuine about Bran.
Kristin Howell responds, why don't you just back up a little bit and hear us talk about it for 20 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. And I liked how you mentioned, Kristin, her outfit, and how she was covered up, and that was symbolic of the fact that she was engaging in a cover-up.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is really cool.
Ashley Renfro. Hi, Ashley. Says,
hey, Ashley.
I never liked Cat. I think because I always loved Jon so much. I'm not digging his facial hair, but I loved him and Arya's scenes together. Think about how epic their reunion could be!
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Big time epic. I'm really, really looking forward to that. I hope that it happens, and hope Arya doesn't die as it's happening.
Oh, gosh, yeah. If you're right on that one, I'm just going to have to, come and just slap you in the face.
Yeah. Not the face, the ear.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Oh, right in the ear.
You hit me in my ear. Yeah.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
That was... I love Fight Club. All right.
Yep. Laura Willie Swink.
Laura!
Hey, Laura.
Woohoo!
She says, the Kingsroad, or the time your asshole friend made you leave your comatose son's bedside to go party with him on the other side of the country. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, fuck Bran.
Let's go whore ourselves through the Riverlands.
Couple of tavern wenches to warm our beds tonight, Ned.
Gosh, he was a dick.
Yeah, he's so funny though. I love that actor, Mark Addy.
He was so good in A Knight's Tale.
Oh, I've never seen that. I need to watch that.
Duncan, promise me you're going to watch it this week.
Yeah, the only reason I never watched it was because I didn't like Heath Ledger beforehand, until I saw him as the Joker, at which point my opinion shifted 180 degrees on Heath Ledger. And I freaking love that guy now.
Didn't you see him in 10 Things I Hate About You? Come on, man.
Yeah, but I had a different personality at that point. If I watch it now, which I have seen bits and pieces of it since then, I think he's awesome in it.
Yeah.
The singing scene, in the stadium, hilarious. But yeah, I've been meaning to go back and watch Knight's Tale. And for anybody else that wants to watch more Mark Addy, there's a TV show from BBC America or one of those networks called Atlantis, where Mark Addy plays Hercules.
Oh, fun! So he's not fat and drunk and...
No, he totally is.
Oh, perfect. Oh,
Hercules. Yeah, legends of Hercules have been blown a little out of proportion, let's say. It's awesome. So yeah, it got canceled after the first season, unfortunately, but I really liked it because I love all that type of stuff. So, is
it on BBC? Like it streams, or is it streaming on Netflix? Or
I'm not sure. It was a couple of years ago, and I haven't seen it pop up anywhere since. But yeah, look into it because if you can find it, it's cool.
All right.
We have an email. you go ahead with this, Kristin.
All right. This
and I'll
is
read
from
my response.
Yusuf in Dubai. Hi, Duncan and Jason. First of all, I just want to say that you guys are doing a great job. Easily my most favorite Game of Thrones podcast among the hundreds of thousands out there. That's so nice. I agree.
That's nice, too, because there's some really good ones out there, so that means a lot. Thanks.
Secondly, I agree that this is so much fun doing a review in hindsight and future episodes in hand. Just a few comments. I do not agree with Duncan mentioning that R plus L would have been illegal, statutory anyway. Marriage in Game of Thrones is pretty much like the old times. Once a woman gets her first period, she becomes eligible for marriage like Sansa. This would have been between 12 to 14. So 16 would have been good, would have been considered fine, if not a bit old already, especially if already betrothed. There would have been a good 2 years that Lyanna was delaying her marriage, and probably because of Rhaegar. Also, Littlefinger did what he did to sow discontent between the Crown Lannisters and the Starks. He wanted the crown for himself, so the best way was to make the closest allies implode and blame it on the Lannisters. That would make 3 houses head for a collision course, along with the other houses who would have been bannermen for any of these 3. He almost succeeded, too, especially as he got his army in the end. He just got too overconfident on his manipulating abilities, not counting he was with a seer who can see through the bullshit. He also wanted Ned gone so that he could make his move on Catelyn.
Bastard.
That's it. Sorry it got long. Regards, Yusuf from Dubai. Duncan, you want to play yourself?
Yeah, I'll play myself. Before I do, you got any comments on that?
You know what? I agree with what he's saying. He did get overconfident, and I think that he just didn't think that Sansa was smart. You know?
Yeah,
I think a lot of people underestimate Sansa.
King's Landing is full of good liars, Sansa, and you're not one of them.
Oh.
Right? He did not learn that she ended up being able to lie, I guess, quite well.
Lies.
Yeah. Lord Yusuf, a pleasure to hear from you, my friend. Cool to see we have people listening all around the world. It's so cool. We got people in Australia, people in Dubai, Scotland, you name it. There's people everywhere. It's just such a cool. The internet is just the coolest thing ever.
Agree.
I completely agree with what you said, Yusuf, with everything you said. When I mentioned Lyanna's age, I guess I poorly articulated my thoughts on that subject. Marriage / betrothal does seem to be common in the Game of Thrones universe at a very young age, like with Tommen and Marjorie, for example. What I was really trying to express was how Rickard may have considered her elopement an abduction because she was too young to decide for herself. Not because she was too young to decide for herself, but because she was already betrothed to Robert. So with Lyanna not having the authority in the house to determine to whom she's married, and Rhaegar having interfered with the betrothal, it may have been interpreted as an abduction by the authority of House Stark, who was, should have been making those decisions himself. So it could have been considered a kidnapping, just in terms of the details of the arrangement and who has the authority to make what marriage arrangements. I think your insight on Littlefinger's motivations is also spot on. Interesting that he probably did want Ned gone too, so he could make his move on Catelyn. Total sleazeball. Yeah, so great hearing from you, my friend, and hopefully we'll hear back from you sometime soon. Thanks so much for listening and taking the time to contribute your thoughts, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, that's the end of our show, episode 44. Thanks for listening, everybody, and I also want to give a huge thanks to Lisa Moreno and Laura Willie Swank for gathering news and feedback. You guys are awesome. And another huge, monumental thank you to our awesome guest host, Kristin Hal, who has been phenomenal this episode. And I'll look forward to having you back sometime soon.
This was really, really fun. So thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. And for everybody else, if you'd like to contact us, you can give us a call at 813-563-3739. That's 813 Joffrey.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast.
And be sure to check out the other great podcasts at podcastica.com, like the Walking Dead cast and Strange Indeed.
Yeah, Strange Indeed. Rima Joe, our guest hosts, or one of our hosts, she now has her own podcast with Sean, which is awesome as well. Yeah, Sean Henninger.
Those two are great together, too. I've been really enjoying their podcast, so I definitely suggest.
Yeah, it's awesome. If you guys are watching Stranger Things or rewatching, preparing for the new season of Stranger Things, it's about to drop, definitely listen to Strange Indeed after each episode. It's awesome. And next up here on Game of Microphones, we'll have Still Smug for Season 1, Episode 1 and 2. And then next week, we'll be covering Season 1, Episode 3, Lord Snow on Game of Microphones. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts to our email and every place listed above. And we'll also post an official thread this weekend on the Game of Microphones page where you can send your feedback as well. All right, everybody, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
Jason, you ran him down.
He ran, not fast.